This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that you will consider this like your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And however you receive podcasts, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a rating and a brief written review? It will help others to be able to locate and discover this podcast. Today I want to take another look at productivity, or really another take on productivity. 6 things that you might like to consider to increase your productivity. The first one is make small incremental change. Now I know that's not glamorous. Most people say if you're going to go big or go home, go ahead and make the major changes. I want to tell you a story I heard in 1996, and it is about a pastor who took a new church, and in those days, he wanted the piano, the keyboard, to be in the center of the platform, and it was over on the side. And so on Saturday night before his first service, he went over and just kicked the brakes off of the wheels and moved the keyboard over to the center of the platform. And the next day was Sunday, and there was an outcry because the piano had been moved. As a matter of fact, the outcry became so great that the pastor felt it necessary sometime in the future to leave. Well, then a few years passed, and they had an anniversary service at that church, and they invited all the former pastors back, and that was in the days when pastors sat on the platform. And as the service was beginning, the old pastor, who felt like he really paid a price and really needed to leave after doing something like moving the piano from a corner to the middle of the platform, could not believe it that when they entered the platform and were sitting down, there was the piano exactly in the middle of the platform where he had placed it in years before and had taken a lot of heat over it. So during the singing, he just leaned over and he whispered to the pastor, the present pastor, "How in the world were you able to move the piano from the side of the platform to the center of the platform when I got in all sorts of difficulty for doing that? How in the world did you pull that off?" And the present pastor whispered in his ear, "I moved it 1 inch a day." And you know, you move something 1 inch a day, you'll move it to where it is you want it to go. Part of the responsibility as a leader is there are issues at times, there are events so important, so crucial, that you have to make a major change, and you have to do it right now, and you have to go all the way in with it. There are other changes to get to where you want to go that you may just need to take intermediate and incremental steps. Now, I can't give you a lot of guidelines. You'll have to go on your own internal mechanism and knowing the culture of your own organization. But don't just think that if you can't turn the whole world upside down and you can't make a gigantic, enormous change, that you can't make change. Sometimes, whether it's in our own personal life, trying to change things, sometimes we have to make incremental change. You've heard me mention it often, that it is the small changes, the way you eat, the way you move, the way you exercise, the way you pay down debt, the way you save, the way you get into spiritual development, the way you start reading books. I wouldn't start with saying I'm going to read every book in the world, but start out by saying if you're not reading at all, I'm going to read for 15 minutes a day. You begin to make small, incremental changes. You want to get up at 5, but you're not getting up presently till 8 o'clock in the morning? Well, it might strip your gears to get up 3 hours early. Why don't you try a half hour? And then maybe in another week, another half hour earlier. I'm not saying that's wise. Some could just do it the whole amount. But there are some areas, and that may be one, where make some small incremental change and celebrate it. Don't put it down. Some of the changes that you need to make, you can take them incrementally And I think it will really help your productivity to take off turbocharged. The second of the six things that I want to mention to you, another take on accountability. The first is, why don't you start with some small incremental changes? The second is, find an accountability partner. This has helped me immensely in my own life, and I have a shout out to my friends Abram and Vince. They are my accountability partners. I talk to them nearly every week. We share what we did that week, both the good and the bad, and we also say what we plan to do that next week. I think just that one simple factor can increase your productivity almost exponentially. So I would find somebody to hold me accountable. Now, maybe you don't want to have someone holding you accountable in every area of your life, or there are some people who, maybe there's someone you know from church that you want them to keep you spiritually on track, and maybe someone at work with projects. You can break it down however you want to break it, but we all do better, not only because we all are accountable, but when we have an identified accountability partner. I think that will help your productivity immensely. Something that someone has, not all that long ago, begun challenging me on and getting me to thinking, as I've talked about, I identify my three most important tasks to do every day, and I make a commitment every day. I'll not go to bed tomorrow evening until those three things are accomplished. And most days that's easy, and I do other things, but there are other days that it's not as easy. Someone said what they have done that has sort of really amped up their productivity is, at the end of the day, a part of their nighttime routine is they look over what they have been about and what they have done and what they have worked on that particular day. And they track and ask themselves, what was the one or two most crucial results of my activities today? How did it move things forward? How did it move me forward? And I've been trying and experimenting with that, because it not only are you committed to, these are the three most important things I must do today, including at least one of them, at the very minimum, has to be about your goal or your mission. And then at the end of the day, it would be a good evaluation. Were these things that I worked on today, were they really significant, and did they really move things ahead? What were the crucial results that came from them? You might try that and experiment with it. I'm finding it's helping me to get really focused on activities and actions, and not just doing things, but are they leading to the results that I'm looking for? The fourth one in this, another take on productivity, would simply be, and especially for those of you who work in an office, is get out of the office periodically. Because my responsibility involves some travel, both local and out of town, I am not in an office day in, day out, week in, week out. But even when I am in a season where I'm home more often than not, I have a couple of places that I have identified where I work. I have an office in my home, but I also have an office at work. But I also have a table at Big B Coffee that I'll go to. And there's certain times that when I go there, especially if I'm working on a project, just the change in environment, just the change of scenery helps me immensely in being focused and working on a particular project. And if you have the flexibility, if where you work gives you that kind of flexibility, go to Panera, go to Starbucks, go to wherever it is, go to the park. There have been times in the past where I've gone to the public library in the community because there's internet connection and other kinds of resources there. But it helps me to put my head down. It gets me out of my routine, and I really focus. So I would say the fourth thing that I would leave with you today on another take of productivity is, whatever your normal workspace is, why don't you make a plan this week to, for one day, go somewhere else and get your work done. The fifth one is one that I was a very slow learner in grasping this. And this is another take on productivity. If you're going to be productive, you are going to have to learn how to say no. You cannot say yes to everything that comes across your desk, to every email, and to every text. If you are a people pleaser leader, this is going to be a hard fought victory over yourself. For everything that you say yes to means you have to say no to everything else that may in fact come along. Now, I like to say yes, but I'm beginning to learn and have over these last few months and years that if I'm going to do all the things that I need to do, I have to learn to say no. And it's okay, my friend. The sixth and final thing that I want to talk about as we take kind of another take or another look at productivity is, as you know, I'm a believer in using a timer that you work for a set amount, then you have a 5-minute break where you stretch or get a drink of coffee or a water, go to the restroom, whatever it is you may need to do. I used to really schedule myself for unbelievably long periods of time. And what I have begun to do, and I cannot tell you how much this has helped me in getting focus and clarity, and that is just simply that I may in my mind think this particular project will take me an hour and 20 minutes to get it done, but I won't schedule more than 50 at a time now, or 55 at the most, and oftentimes I'm scheduling myself in 40-minute blocks of time. What I have found is when I go in knowing that I have scheduled less time than I believe it's actually going to take to get that thing done, it really helps me to stomp out procrastination, to wasting time. It goes by the wayside because I know that even if I'm effective and efficient, I probably will not have enough time to get the assignment completely done in the time that I've allotted myself. So it forces me to really get done. And here is the unbelievable thing that happens. It's not just that I don't procrastinate or waste time. It's that I have at times surprised myself by getting a whole lot more done in less time than I could imagine. I call this my time efficiency tool, and that is if I think the particular project would take me 30 minutes, I will schedule it for 20. I do this on one day. If this little thing that I need to do would take 15 minutes, I schedule myself for 10. And I would say 60 to 70% of the time, I am able to get it done in the newly allotted amount of time. So then you're going to say, the next question is, well, what do you do if you took on a 40-minute project, gave yourself 30 minutes, and you still are about 10 or 15 minutes done? I get up and take my 5-minute break and do whatever I need to do, stretch, so on. I come back, and if I think there's 15 minutes left, I schedule it for 10. What has happened nearly 90% of the time, and it's unbelievable, friends, is that most everything takes a little bit less time than you think. If you sit down, get after it, are prepared, don't start working till you have all the material with you, and then block out the distractions, shut the door, turn off all of the pings and dings, all of the notifications, put your head down and work, and you, my friend, will be utterly surprised that the majority of the time you are able to get things accomplished in a bit less time than you had imagined. Now, obviously, I have a disclaimer. There have been a few times when I got into something and realized there was a whole lot more to it than I ever imagined or ever thought. And in those times, there are some things that take more time. But this is another take on productivity. Try some small incremental change. Find an accountability partner. Why don't you track every day what was the most crucial result that I accomplished this day? If you work in an office and are able to, get out of the office periodically and find a new workspace for the day or a part of a day. Learn to say no to some things. You aren't going to be able to do everything. And the final one, why don't you sit down and try to schedule your allotment of time on a particular item a little less than what you think you need. And I'd be interested in hearing from you if any of these productivity hacks, as they were, worked for you. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I hope that today this has been like a vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, my friend, would you please go and subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom? Pass the word around. It would be so very helpful if you'd leave a rating and a brief written review. This is Dr. Ron saying to you, leader, you are doing better. Trust me, you are doing better than you think you are, and every one of us has room for improvement. This is Dr. Ron saying, until next time, have a great and blessed day.